My parents were Joe and Irma Ranalli, and they were. My father was born in Tontitown, and my mother was born in a small town of Little Italy, Arkansas. My grandfather on my dad's side, his name is Nazareno Ranalli. He came to this country in 1906. He came through Ellis Island, and then in 1907 he got on a train and moved and came south to Tontitown, Arkansas. And he was a farm laborer. Tontitown was just starting to get their grape vineyards started at the time. And then in 1923, he bought his first farm, or his farm in Tontitown. He married Catherine Taldo. She was married before. She had 6 children, and then her husband passed away, and then she married Nazareno Ranalli, and they had one child, which was my father, Joe Ranalli. There was only one. My grandfather was the only Ranalli that moved here, and my father was the only Ranalli, and my dad had 7 children. My grandfather on my mother's side was killed by a bolt of lightning, as well as one of my uncles. They was working in the field. They came out of the field, and to seek shelter, and where they was going for shelter was in an old cheese house. It was in Little Italy, Arkansas, and they were killed by a bolt of lightning. An uncle and my grandfather. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. They're older than I am. I was the youngest of 7. Anthony, Agatha, Norbert, Albina, Paul, Pauline, and I was the 7th. And I'm Chris. We were farmers. My dad was he was a winemaker. He worked for Granada's Winery. He worked there for 35 years. And then he retired after 35 years in the wine business, and we had a family farm, and he continued raising cattle, growing grapes. We were just a farm family. We done some of all of it, from harvesting grapes, tomatoes, any produce on the farm. We worked in the wintertime making grape cuttings, pruning grape vineyards, helping other farmers in the area with whatever work that they had. Mainly, our occupation was we were farmers. I was a farm laborer, and I helped feed cattle, pick grapes on my neighbors' farms, working in the poultry, a lot of chicken house work. Mainly, it was all agricultural related work. Well, we all ate together. We always ate our meals together as a family. We had a real tight family. My mother passed away when I was 2 years old. We were just a very tight-knit family. We always had chores in the evenings, from just regular farm chores, gathering eggs, feeding cattle, just all kinds of farm work. You know, we done pruning grapes in the wintertime, making grape cuttings. I would say we was just your average farm family. In that time, in that period in life, we were basically like any other neighbor around us. We were just farm families, grape growers. The big event back then was the Grape Festival. The Tontitown Grape Festival, that's one thing that we always look forward to every year. To riding the rides at the festival, seeing all the other people from Tontitown and meeting new friends from Springdale. The thing that I always remembered is we always had an opportunity to make a few dollars. We would go out and harvest grapes in the mornings. We would make enough money picking grapes or doing other farm labor throughout the summer months. So we would save our money to go to the festival, to buy rides at the carnival, buy something simple as a candy apple, a bag of popcorn, cotton candy. We had a means of making a few dollars back then. You know, we always had a few dollars in our pocket, and we were never. I would say we was just your average American at the time. We had an opportunity to earn wages. Oh yeah, washing dishes at the Grape Festival, at the spaghetti dinners. We would help wash dishes, clean up the Grape Festival grounds of trash. You know, people would throw their cups down. We would go up there early in the mornings, pick up trash at the festival, help them set up tables at the festival. Just anywhere we was needed, we were ready to jump in and help. I went to Tontitown School for 6 years and was taught by the Sisters of Mercy. It was a public school, but taught by the Sisters of Mercy. Our school was even a real tight-knit school. Everybody knew everybody, and kind of like one big happy family. That's the best way to explain it. Rodney Penalto was a really good one. Curtis Taldo was another really good friend. I would say most of all of my classmates we were friends with. I can't say that I had anybody in our class that I wasn't friends with. We all were pretty tight-knit. Back then, in the 60s, going to town was like a one time a week trip that we would go into town. And it was quite a ways, or it seemed like it was. Most people didn't travel a whole lot back then, and we would all load up in a station wagon and go to the Harp's grocery store and buy groceries. Most of the time, if we done anything other than going to the grocery store, it was maybe going to my aunt's. She had a little produce stand up there, just right close to our farm. We would help her pick produce, pick tomatoes, pick grapes. We'd help several of the farmers help with their harvest, hauling hay. We hauled a lot of hay for beef cattle production. We had really a nice upbringing. It wasn't anything big and fancy, but we always had a good time. We always had a lot of good neighbors, good family, friends. We had a good time growing up. It wasn't a bad thing. We shopped at the Tontitown Mercantile. If it was something that we need, like if it was kind of like our convenience store. We would go up there to buy. They had it all. They had hardware. They had a meat department. They sold beer and wine there. It was one of the only stores in the state, one of the 2 stores in the state that sold groceries, sold hardware. You can buy fishing tackle, you can buy boots, some clothing items. It was like a one-shop stop. The Tontitown Mercantile was kind of a one-shop stopping store. It was really neat. Venetian Inn. We ate at Venetian Inn quite often. Really good food, and there was another small cafe. It was called Alma's Cafe, and me and my dad, my brothers and sisters, we'd all go up there on a Friday or Saturday evening sometimes, and the food was excellent. There was also the Mary Maestries. We didn't eat there a whole lot. They had really good food, but there was a lot of people did. It seemed like Mary Maestries was one of the restaurants. It was a little higher end restaurant. A lot of people from Fayetteville, a lot of lawyers and people from Fayetteville came and eat at Mary Maestries. We did too, but not as often. They're really good food. All these restaurants back in the day had the best Italian food that you could eat. And Jake's Cafe in Springdale. We eat there quite often. Jake J. Rowe was one of my dad's best friends. They went to the World War II together on a buddy plan, so they were really good friends. But as far as Tontitown, those were the two restaurants that we ate at the most. I never moved anywhere. I'm still living in the same house that I was born and raised in. I've lived there for 59 years. Oh, I tell you what, I live on the most beautiful farm in this state, as far as I'm concerned. I don't have anything else to add to it. I mean, I was very fortunate to have a piece of land to work with, and I still have it. We've owned this farm for 3 generations now. I was reading a grape and wine encyclopedia the other day, and I had no idea of how many acres of grapes was in the northwest Arkansas and Tontitown area. There were 4,000 acres of Concord grapes in this area back in the 70s. The Welch Foods Company, the farmers in Tontitown had contracts with Welch Foods. They sold all their grapes to the Welch Foods Company. And then in 1984, the Welch Foods, they pulled out of this plant here in Springdale. They had a plant in Springdale on Huntsville Street. They closed that plant down. They said that they didn't want to spend the money to upgrade this facility. And so they moved out, and also they let go of all the grape contracts. And so we basically didn't have a home for our produce anymore, for our grape crop, the Concord and the Niagara grapes. So a lot of the old farmers that went out of business, but we were more on the independent side. We chose to stay in the grape business and sell them on the fresh market. So we sold them to Shaver and Son Produce, which we sold them to for all them years. We picked all of our grapes by hand and packed them in containers for the fresh market. They went to the grocery stores all over the United States. And so we were one of the few grape growers left that were just independent grape growers, and that's still what we're doing today. We're just an independent grape grower. My dad worked for Granada's Winery. He worked there for 35 years, and after the Granada's Winery shut down, I believe it was in the 70s. I think it was in 71 or 72 they shut the winery down. And my dad, he started in the beef cattle business, and also custom baling and cutting hay for different farmers. And he was still making small batches of wine for home use. And so I got interested in making wine. My father died in 1974. Even after my dad had passed away, I was making small batches of wine in my basement just to keep tradition going. And then my children, I have two daughters, and they were interested in growing grapes and also making wine. And so we started making small batches of wine, and now they have their own winery. There's not hardly any grape growers left in Tontitown. There's only 2 or 3 of us left that's growing grapes. And we're all independent grape growers. We grow several different varieties of grapes. We grow some seedless grapes. Some of them are seeded grapes. And we sell most of all of ours at our produce market or to the winery, Tontitown Winery. The grape business is one of those that if you enjoy growing grapes, it's hard to get out of it. It gets in your blood. The grape growing, just the growing grapes in itself is one of those things I love doing. It's hard to get away from. And if I didn't have my produce market that I have right now, I really wouldn't need the 20 acres of grapes that I have, because I wouldn't have a market for them. We don't have a market for our grapes other than the ones that we've created ourselves. Okay, our produce market in Tontitown The concept that we have at Ranalli Farms Produce is we want to grow produce and sell it directly to the consumer. That there's our niche market. Everybody wants fresh produce. So we grow produce on our farm, we bring it directly to our market, and we sell it retail. And some wholesale, but not much. Most of it is retail. We grow tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, okra, watermelon, and cantaloupe, 7 or 8 different varieties of grapes. I think we have 8 varieties of grapes out there. We do a lot of what we say truck patch gardening. We grow small amounts of a lot of different kinds of vegetables to sell retail at our produce market. From Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, they come from everywhere. It's a retail market. I mean, we have customers that come from all over. I mean, from other states. We have a really good location. We are located on Highway 412, just west of Tontitown, and Highway 412 is one of the biggest highway entrances into the state of Arkansas. So we have a really good customer base from a wide range of folks. We sell rocking chairs. We sell fresh baked bread, several different kinds of fruit bread, strawberry bread, banana nut bread, cookies, dinner rolls. We make our own pasta, cinnamon rolls, orange rolls, and also we do like pecan pie. Our big specialty at holiday time is pecan and pumpkin pies. We do a lot of pies during the holiday time in the fall. We have one other neighbor that makes some that does grow grapes. The Montegani family. They still grow some grapes and make some of their own batches of wine. And there's not many grape growers left, though. If there's not a need for them, there's no need in having them. It's a very expensive project. We had a really good upbringing as far as being raised in the church and doing different church functions, youth groups, going different places. It was just I would say, it was really good to be raised in the traditional Italian tradition that we were raised in. I think it really kept us kind of on the straight and narrow. It really did. We were pretty good bunch of kids. Go swimming. In a hot afternoon, we'd go to the creek and go swimming. It was one of the best things we would do. We worked all the time. We worked all the time. We always had jobs. And if we didn't have jobs, if we say we would be, my dad was one of these, if we got our chores done in the mornings, whenever it was nice and cool, we was allowed to go swimming in the afternoon. And that's kind of what we did. I didn't go to town. I mean, it was just too far. I know it sounds crazy now, but we just kind of stuck with our own people out here. We had a lot of fun. We went to the creek, went swimming. I really didn't know. I didn't really have any friends in Springdale until I started going to school in Springdale. I went to 7 years of school here in Tontitown, and then on to Springdale, and we met a whole new group of kids up there. And some of them was good, some of it was good, and some of it wasn't. Some of them kids you didn't know quite. We learned a lot of things, let's put it that way. We were very well respected, teachers, principals, and all. Very well respected in Springdale, Arkansas. Because it seemed like a lot of the kids from Springdale, they didn't have the opportunity that we had on the farm. They didn't have anything to do. Unless they, I mean, yes, I'm sure they had little, part-time jobs and stuff, but the way I kind of felt back then, we were kind of the heroes. We always had jobs. We had some money in our pockets. We had a lot of friends. I mean, the people from Springdale liked the guys from Tontitown. They really did. Oh, we would go over to the neighbor's house, and us kids would play with the neighbor's kids, or might be vice versa. They may come over to our house one weekend, next weekend we'd go over to their house. Bring a watermelon, have watermelon out under a shade tree. None of us had air conditioning back then, so we just sat out under a shade tree and made the best of it. Rode bicycles. You'd ride a bicycle to the neighbor's house. Like I say, go to the swimming hole. We'd go to some creek, find a good hole of water, and go swimming. We didn't have the choices like we had today. They're just, we made do with what we had. We really did. Halloween was, we would dress up in some, old pair of overalls and a floppy hat or something, and we would walk up the road to the neighbor's house, and most of them didn't have Halloween candy. They would maybe give you a couple of homemade cookies, instead of, candy. Or you might get a wedge of I remember one of them, they would give us celery stalk with some peanut butter on it. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have, whatever they can come up with, that's what we got as a trick-or-treating, Halloween trick-or-treat. It was pretty simple life. Or we'd go up to the neighbors' kids and they'd dress up and they'd go trick-or-treating with us. But there was only, from where we lived to the highway, there was only 4 houses. So we went to those 4 houses every year. There wasn't many people out here. The city just grew this way. I don't even know how to explain it, but the city of Springdale moved to Tontitown. It just all went west. It didn't go east very much. It all went west. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, I don't know if it was the choices of land or whatever. I mean, the prices of land went really high because of everybody was moving out here. The city moved to Tontitown. Everybody comes down that highway, and that's how they get here. And whenever they come this way, they're spending money. They're spending money in this area. All kinds of businesses, malls. There's a lot going on in Springdale. Well, back in the 60s and 70s, it was a poultry industry. That's really what made this country. The poultry industry. There's a lot of people that raise chickens out in here. The chicken business, cattle business, and grape business all kind of went hand in hand. We would raise chickens. Tyson's would, send. I mean, it was good for these farm families around here. They was getting a paycheck for raising chickens. They'd use that chicken litter, put it on these fields that made all their pastures green to make more hay for the cows. It all worked hand in hand. And then Walmart, J.B. Hunt, PAM Trucking, Tyson's, that's what made this area. It's what made this Northwest Arkansas area. These big companies, because there was employment. People had jobs. A lot of other smaller other towns around the state of Arkansas didn't have that opportunity. People moved to this area to make a living. That's the reason why we stayed here, because we was able to make a living. I didn't need to move anywhere. It's the best place in the world to live. That's all I can say. It's just the best place to raise a family. It was. I have 2 wonderful daughters, and it was the best place that I could have ever raised a family, the best. Just the people that live out here. We see it every weekend on this deck out here. There's hundreds of people show up at this winery, live music. All my kids' friends, they all live right around here. Most of them live pretty close. It's the best bunch of, but I could say kids, they're 30 and 40 years old now. But what I'm saying is there's nothing else. It's the best kept secret in Northwest Arkansas is what this winery's got going on. It really is. I'm glad that someone is doing these interviews because all this history could be lost. Everybody that does these interviews, the 2 books that they've written. A lot of these little towns, you know, there was a lot of history, but nobody ever wrote anything down about them. You know, they may have a little plaque, you know, saying, well, this is, you know, what happened back in the 60s or whatever, but there was never, the only thing that I regret that this town didn't do is they should have started this collecting history 50 years before they did start writing things down as far as the history. There is a lot of history out in here. There's a lot of history. I mean, the people that know the most history are dead. They're gone.